Now, if you've eaten any sort of produce that isn't explicitly labeled as organic recently, chances are very high that the food you ate was a genetically modified organism, or GMO. Essentially, engineers take the code DNA, which is the basis for all life, and change it around a bit. Now, we have the technology today to change some of the fundamental properties of organisms and manipulate them to our advantage. Despite some concerns that the public has over GMOs, I believe that on balance, GMOs are good for society. Now, but before I start, it's important to note that not everyone has been enamored by the advent of GMOs. Critics have raised concerns over GMO products, and I'll do my best to address those concerns before I discuss some of the benefits of GMOs. Now, first of all, there is concern over the health effects of genetically modified organisms. Is it possible that antibiotic resistance, for example, could find its way into our food supply and infect humans? The answer is no. According to the National Academies of Science, 98% of the DNA you actually end up eating becomes digested in about 1 hour. By the time ingested DNA actually reaches your large intestine, everything is completely degraded. Any sort of infection mechanism or transposable element found in DNA simply won't work if the DNA itself is degraded. Another concern that has been raised over GMO food production is the leakage of undesirable genetic material into the environment. Critics worry that selectable markers for things such as antibiotic resistance or herbicide resistance might insert themselves into wild-type organisms. In response to this public concern, scientists have developed the PMI marker system. The PMI marker system doesn't use antibiotic-resistant markers to insert genetic material into plants. Instead, it uses a gene that allows plants to grow in the presence of mannose, a simple sugar. And this really helps address some of the fears that the public has over antibiotic resistance. Now, there's also been a public backlash over the behavior of certain GMO companies, such as Monsanto's. Now, these companies have done a lot of bad things, certainly, and they probably need to be regulated. This doesn't mean, however, that GMOs themselves are inherently bad. It just means that some companies have chosen to abuse their powers. Now that I've addressed the public concerns over GMOs, I'm going to look at the benefits that they bring. GMOs increase crop yields, reduce harm to the environment, and help the global economy. Now, first of all, GMOs help to increase crop yields for farmers. According to the National Academies of Science, GMO crops are better suited for resistance to herbicides and insects. GMO crops are bred to produce larger amounts of products. You see bigger, juicier apples, rounder, orangier oranges, and everyone can get behind that. In addition to giving us greater amounts of food, GMO crops can give us more nutritious food. Researchers have developed golden rice with essential nutrients provitamin A and beta-carotene, in order to feed individuals in impoverished nations at a low cost. Second, GMOs help to reduce environmental harms. Genetically modified organisms are resistant to insects, so farmers don't have to use as many insecticides. Less insecticides in the environment is a good thing for everyone. We don't have toxins leaking into the water supply or into the ground. The plants are no worse off for it. Finally, GMOs have benefited us economically. GMO food is cheaper to produce because farmers can get greater yields, while at the same time spending less money on things like herbicides and insecticides. Ultimately, these lower food prices get passed on to consumers like you and me, as well as producers of processed food. In the end, everyone benefits from lower food prices. So as we can see, the benefits of genetically modified organisms are great, and their harms are generally overstated. So for this reason, we find that genetically modified organisms are good for society.